You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we have as our guest State Representative Annazette Collins, who is running in the 7th Congressional District Democratic primary. That's the primary. It's a contested primary to replace Congressman Danny Davis, who says he's running for Cook County Board President. Perhaps more about that as we get into the show, and more about our guest, Representative Collins, as we get into the show. But Representative Collins, you said health care is one of the major issues. Let me ask you, a lot of people say there are 47 million uninsured people here in America. And there are some people who are more skeptical and say when you cut it down, there are really only 8 million people who really can't get health insurance if they want to. What do you say? Is it 47 million or 8 million?
I don't know what the number is, but I can tell you this, is that no one should be uninsured in America, and the cost should be kept down. We should not have anyone that can't go to the doctor and afford health care for whatever they need.
But what if people just don't take advantage of programs? You know that 47 million number, the way they get it down, is people say there are about 14 million people who could get Medicaid or Medicare. They could enroll. They just don't do it. Do we force those 14 million to enroll in our programs even though they haven't chosen to? There are 13 million people. This is a study that was done a few years back in 2003, but it may still be relevant. Things may not change that much. That study says 13 million people earn more than $50,000 in income. Should those people be able to get and probably could afford health care? So that's 27 million that's counted in the 48 right there. There are 6 million people who they say are short-term uninsured. They're in between jobs, temporary unemployed. Some people would say in a survey, these are people who've been unemployed for less than a year. So they will be back on the insurance program, presumably, if they get a job with somebody who's got benefits. 6 million or so includes illegal immigrants. Are we going to cover illegal immigrants? Or people who have enough income they probably could get health insurance with some sort of tax credits or assistance from the government. So, I mean, you add up all those numbers, there are so-called 8 million chronically unemployed. So the question one, if it's only 8 million, I'm not saying we don't want to help them. Those are the people we want to help. Right. But if the others have programs and they're not taking advantage of it, they're short-term unemployed, they'll be back with health insurance soon. Should we change our whole health system in the United States for 8 million people who don't have health insurance?
Well, I don't know that we're changing a whole insurance program, but for the states like Illinois, for example, our state, the Medicare, about a third of our costs, we're paying Medicare payments, and the number keeps increasing. And so our state budget is in trouble because
Medicare
of
or Medicaid?
Medicaid.
Okay.
So, and then if we add, so now we're at the point, are we going to add more people to Medicaid? I don't know.
Well, somebody has to pay it. I mean, if you're saying if we push it off on the federal government, we still pay.
We're still paying
Taxpayers
for
pay. One time they pay as a federal tax, or they pay as a state tax. Doesn't make it any easier to push it off on the federal government, does it?
Well, no, it doesn't.
It may make it worse. Because it makes it more costly. They're farther away from the people, do less good job. I mean, you agree with that notion of federalism? People should be closer to their government. Well, like Alderman Ed Smith, who we know, he's a good friend of yours, right?
Yes.
He's a good guy. He's an alderman. Yes. So put things closer to the city of Chicago where they can respond quickly. If they can't do that, well, then we go to the state. Well, if we can't handle it on the state level, then we go to the federal level, right? Is that the order of things? City, state, federal?
Well,
you agree?
We forgot about the county.
Well, okay, maybe city, county. Sorry, Todd. Mr. President, Todd Stroger. City, county, state, federal. I didn't mean to exclude the county.
Right.
Cook
well,
County.
we spend a lot of money in our state, period, in the city, the state, and the county for people who are uninsured. And even the people who are insured are paying too much. I think maybe that's the problem, too, that America is seeing. So it's the 8 million who are uninsured, or if we say 27 million who are uninsured, but it's the people who are also insured who are paying too much money for healthcare.
What's too much? It's the competitive price. I mean, do you think?
Well, I don't know. So if you're at a PPO and you're paying, just take, for example, you have a kid that's sick. I have a daughter who has asthma. So I have a PPO. So the PPO, every time I go to the doctor, the cost is high. Plus, I'm already paying a premium. Then if I have to pay medicine,
sometimes that's because you folks in the state government mandate coverage. You require a lot of things to be covered that people might choose not to. The cost of health insurance is higher.
Well, I don't think so.
You don't think by mandates? Because there are a lot of things that if you require the insurance companies to cover these things.
Well, asthma is almost.
No, I'm not saying asthma will be. You raise an issue that's slight digression, but for chronic illnesses, I think asthma, Crohn's disease, things of that type that are manageable but are costly and difficult, maybe we should have a separate assistance program for those programs, for parents who have kids who have those diseases. Those are extraordinary costs often, and it might be fair. That's a word I never thought I'd use, but I use it from time to time. My kids will be glad to see I've learned how to use fair. But truly, to be fair, you may want to assist people who have chronic disease problems because they can be quite costly. Again, don't change your whole healthcare system. Just identify it. Similarly with education, when kids have major learning disabilities, severely handicapped, we in a sense give them more money for their education, or we should.
Well, we hope.
We hope, because they are truly more expensive to educate, and we don't want to penalize a parent who happens to have a very costly child to educate. The government assists them.
But it's a big fight. It's not automatic, So the child has asthma, just say, and she goes to the doctor, and you have a PPO, so you're paying more money for her. You're paying every time you take the kid to the doctor more. You can only get so many visits for wellness care they call. And then if you get so many asthma pumps, then that's more money. So you have to contain the cost.
Okay. So we're taking care of that. We just say we did.
Okay.
Either the state or the federal government's going to they listen to Berkowitz, they listen to Representative Collins, and say, okay, you got our attention. Those folks should get a little bit more attention and extra financial assistance. Taking care of that.
Okay.
Do we need this whole thing about a public option? I mean, we've got all this dispute. You got people carrying guns into healthcare down forums. I mean, they can. There are areas where it's legal to carry guns, but you know what I mean? We're getting up to, there's a high level of tension here, and maybe it's just not warranted. The problems could be more self-contained. We don't need to radically change the system, do we?
Well, I think...
I mean, you want to... Look, if you support Barack Obama's program, it's a radical change in healthcare insurance, isn't it?
Well, I think we need to change the way that first of all, people aren't understanding what's going on. And I think that's maybe the big issue, is that a lot of times we don't listen. And sometimes the voters...
I don't know, they're kind of with it. They're following.
You think they're following?
Going to these town hall meetings.
They're going to the town hall meetings, but people are
getting
democracy,
so I mean,
that is democracy.
You're not against town hall meetings, right?
Oh, I love town hall meetings.
Because Nancy Pelosi said they're sort of un-American by going and protesting things, right?
Oh, no.
You support Speaker Pelosi saying it was un-American?
No, I am saying that we had a big town hall meeting when we talked about gun issue, and we get a lot from the public. But if we don't listen to each other, then sometimes it's not as productive. Let's go over to guns now
that you raise it. What about guns? You a big believer in gun control?
Well, I think that half of America believe that we should have guns, the other half should not. I think we have to figure out a way how to get illegal guns.
Which half of the America are you in? The ones that think we should have guns, or the ones that think we should?
I'm in the half that feels that we have to get illegal guns off the streets.
But legal guns are okay?
Legal guns, when you've gone through the process of obtaining a legal gun, it's okay.
You believe in the Second Amendment?
Yes, I believe in the
Second Amendment. Constitution of the United States says people have the right to bear arms, right?
Right, but within limits. And we have to get the illegal guns off the streets, because in the urban parts of
the city of Chicago, they make it illegal for you to possess a handgun in your home.
That's true.
You've got, let's talk, the 7th Congressional District has got some areas that are kind of tough, right? Am I putting that right?
That's correct.
They're relatively high crime areas. They're tough areas where you might want a gun in your home to protect yourself. You might be a good guy, you might not want to use the gun, but if some bad guy comes knocking on the door, you might want that bad guy to think maybe you got a gun and he should go away.
Well, 99% of our citizens are law-abiding citizens.
No, but I'm saying, why shouldn't, right now, that person would not be law-abiding in the city of Chicago.
Well, it'd be illegal in the city of Chicago.
Would you like to change that? Should that person in a bad area, should that person in the city of Chicago be able to own a gun, a handgun in his home?
Well, it's illegal right now.
I know. Should we change the law? And it's a city issue. I know you're a state rep and you're running for federal office, but I'm trying to get your philosophy.
Well,
would you like to see that change in the city of Chicago, that people in the 7th Congressional District in Chicago could own a handgun?
I don't know that I would go as far to say that everyone in the city of Chicago should carry a handgun.
I'm not saying should carry. Should be allowed to do that without breaking law.
But if they choose to, and if they were a law-abiding citizen and they went and got a permit and had an FOID card,
they should be able to do it.
Because most of the state and most of the surrounding cities are allowed to carry a gun.
And so, in what your district, the 7th Congressional District that you're running for,
yes,
it includes a good portion of the Loop, right?
Yes.
North Michigan corridor, the near north side, what used to be Cabrini Green, right?
Yes.
That would be there. Going south, and a portion of along the lake to Soldier Field, right?
Yes.
And then the black area, some people still refer to it as a black ghetto on the west side. Do you take offense if people say that? Because Michael Barone said that in the Almanac of American Politics. Is that an offensive term, black ghetto on the west side?
Black ghetto. I think ghetto has been considered an offensive term. So
yeah,
black
so we're
ghetto,
tell Mike
black ghetto is making it real personal because there are ghettos all across the country. But
there's an African American area, primarily African American, on the west side. That is in the 7th Congressional District, right?
That's correct.
Okay, and that goes out then to Oak Park, which is more integrated, right?
Oak Park is more integrated.
River Forest?
River Forest.
Maywood?
Maywood.
Is Maywood more integrated, or is it more segregated on the black side?
Maywood is mostly black.
Okay.
Maywood and Broadview. Hillside is integrated probably.
And the district as a whole is about 2/3 African American, 1/3 white, something like that? Small portion of Hispanic?
Probably about right, because...
That's the district you want to represent?
Yes.
And what is it? Why do you want to represent that district? What's the, Teddy Kennedy, who died recently, and we're not going to speak ill of the dead, but everybody, when they were talking about him, we're taping the show on August 30th, right? Mm-hmm. And he was just buried, the funeral yesterday, buried in Arlington Cemetery. But it's said that when he was running for president in 1980, Roger Mudd, who was a CBS correspondent, it was national correspondent, whatever he was, stumped him when he asked Ted Kennedy why he wanted to be president. Apparently he didn't have a ready answer.
Right.
So are we stumping Alderman Annazette Collins when we ask why you'd like to be a congresswoman from the 7th?
Well, state representative, right?
You
said Alderman.
Oh, excuse me. I got Alderman Smith on my mind. We met Alderman Smith. I was lucky enough to meet him before the show.
Oh, no, I know why I want to be.
I meant to say, State Representative Annazette Collins, do you know why you want to be Congresswoman from the 7th Congressional District?
Yes, I do.
Why?
Because I want, I do very well as a state legislator, and I want to take it to the next level on the federal. I did a lot of work with juvenile justice and helping things with our kids in education. I want to help with the healthcare crisis that we're finding ourselves facing with, trying to figure out should the whole country, should we go to a public plan or should we not? If we can figure out some of those things.
All right, and you want to go to a public plan?
I don't know what
Is it essential? Because at one point it sounded like Barack Obama said it's essential, now not so much.
Well, I think what we want to do is find a fair way to ensure the whole country, and that United States should be a country where everyone should get it.
Why do we need it? Look, a public plan, that's a fancy word for a government plan, which is a fancy word for saying the government has to get involved in health care, but they don't have to get, we can get competitive, high-quality computers. We don't have a government option for computers, do we? And it seems to work nice. We don't have a government option. Well, we sort of do for automobiles because they've taken over the automobile industry.
But we haven't.
But until recently, we didn't have a government option or a public option in the automobile business. So, see, for enterprise, you believe in free enterprise, right? Do you believe?
You talk a lot, but you don't give me a chance to answer a lot of questions.
Answer them right now. I'll be quiet.
I'm going to answer it. I think that the United States we have not did a great job. We have not done a great job in making sure that everyone is insured. And so we, as a country, need to figure out how to do that. If it comes out that the public option is the right thing to do or the best option, then yes, we should do that. But if it comes out that we find a better plan, then yes, we should do that. But everyone in this country should have health care, and we should do it at a fair price for everyone, that everyone can afford.
Is a fair price the same thing as the competitive price?
Well, maybe or maybe not.
Competitive price might be too high?
Competitive price might be too high.
So that means we should subsidize health care?
I don't know.
For some people, all people?
Well, for the people who can't afford it, so that people, if you go to the doctor, and even now it's not fair. As you know, that when you go to there have been many studies that if a black person white person go to the doctor, you're not treated the exact same way. Now, is
that
that
right?
about price?
Is that right? Are there studies that show
Yeah,
that?
there are a lot of studies that show. And if you go in complaining about the exact same thing, or even if you're insured.
Is that throughout the country, you think?
Well, I don't know about the country, but we're just talking about in the United States now.
Yeah, there are places that a black person does not get treated the same way as a white person.
Exactly.
When they go to a doctor.
When they go to the doctor. If you go in complaining about the exact same thing.
What
now,
if the
is that
doctor's,
about
what if
fair
the
or
doctor's
unfair?
black?
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter? Black doctors discriminate against black patients?
I don't know that, we have a problem having black doctors too. We don't have lots of black doctors.
Not a lot more than used to be. That's certainly true.
Well, that's certainly true. But we don't have enough. But the point is that we're not treated fairly. So if you can say if that's fair, or should we be given the same services? Is that about money? So if you're uninsured, you just think if you have insurance and you go to the hospital and you're not treated fairly. So if you're uninsured and you go to the doctor, you most certainly are not going to be treated as fair.
Yeah, and so one way to make things fair, well, you mentioned if we had more black doctors, maybe there'd be less discrimination.
No,
right?
You said that.
Okay.
I said we didn't have a lot. You brought up the
So
color
you're not
issue
sure,
about blacks.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
just
not sure
saying
doctors discriminate.
it's about the profession, that if you're going to the doctor, you should be treated equally, and it should be, you want competitive, I want fair, because even if it's competitive price, doesn't make it a fair price.
I thought it was. So you don't believe in free enterprise?
I believe in free enterprise.
Doesn't free enterprise result in a competitive price?
Maybe.
But if it's a competitive price, you're saying that's still not good enough. You want something fair, which I don't know what it is.
Well, fair means that everyone can afford it. So it may be competitive, but if I can't afford it, then what difference is it? If it's competitive, then that means you can give me the services, but I can't pay for it.
Well,
so that's why the government.
What level of income, annual family income for a family of 4, would allow people to afford health care, in your view?
I'm not sure.
50,000?
Well,
100,000?
Our past governor thought maybe $80,000.
Do you think he was right? Do you think he was right?
$80,000 a year. Well, if you think about it, if you think about the cost of housing, if you want to live in a good neighborhood, housing is very expensive. If you talk about schools, once you send your kids to private or public schools, if you're going to university, and after you pay all of your household expenses, $80,000 is not a lot of money.
So it's okay. You agree with the former governor when he said 80,000 or less should be subsidized health care?
Yes.
You agree?
If you don't get it through your...
But you raised education, so let me ask you about education. Mm-hmm. Is there a high quality education now in the city of Chicago?
Oh, no.
It's not?
Illinois, we have we're number 49 in the country in education. In education, in educating our children, so we're 49 at the bottom.
In performance?
In performance. We don't educate our kids.
What would you do in Chicago, because you have a little more control over that? I know you're a state rep, so you have some influence outside of Chicago, but focusing on the 7th Congressional District, even though it's a state issue, there's some people who say if we had more competition in education, more school choice, more charter schools than we currently have, more vouchers, so people could take the money that we're spending on their kids' education and go to the school of their choice, public or private, we'd have better education. What do you say to that?
I said that almost the same thing I'm going to say about healthcare is that it should be equal. Every school in our neighborhood should offer the same programs in every school. It's like we shouldn't have a school
throughout the state of Illinois?
Throughout the state of Illinois.
Throughout the country of the United States?
Throughout the country.
Should be equal?
Should be equal.
Spending should be exactly equal, or just?
Spending should be, if you have more kids, of course you got to spend more, but
per pupil, it should be exactly the same.
It should be exactly the same.
That would be what you'd like to see, complete equality.
That's what I would like
on
to
expenditures.
See. Yes.
Do you think it would make education better? Or what about those people who say, even with unequal spending, if you had competition, the schools right now that don't have competition would get better? You disagree with that?
Right now, that we have some schools in our districts that don't have computers, that have books that are 20 years old.
We have some of that, but you know how much we spend in the city of Chicago public schools now?
Per pupil?
Per pupil.
Per pupil, I think it's about $7,600.
No, it's about $15,000 because we spend, it's a $6 billion budget and there are 400,000 students about. Those are indisputable facts. $6 billion divided by 400,000 comes out 15,000 per kid per year. That's on average. There may be some schools that get more, and this is
not
Chicago.
in Chicago.
No, this is Chicago.
Not in Chicago.
No, this is Chicago.
We don't spend that much
We do.
per pupil.
We do. I would stake my reputation on it.
Okay. Okay.
Because if it's a $6 billion budget, and if it's 400,000 students, you divide one into the other, you get 15,000.
But you got you got all the categoricals that you spend money on, and you have, and when you talk about when the schools get Chicago get their money for schools and they distribute it, you got to remember that we have over 700 schools in the city of Chicago, where we're trying to get to another 100 by 2010.
But should there be more charter schools in Chicago?
Well,
do you like charter schools?
No, I'm not necessarily.
You don't like school vouchers?
I'm not for school vouchers. I believe that all our public schools should be equal. That I think that every kid should have to be able to go to a public school that have music, art, after-school programs. They should have gym programs.
But charter schools do a lot of that, and there's a waiting list to get into charter schools. The people in Chicago say they want more because that's a waiting list, and you say to them you don't agree they shouldn't get that charter school choice.
I don't think that the charter schools, some of the charter schools are very nice, and a lot of the charter schools, some of the charter schools, they spend a lot of money on buildings, so they don't get to the education. So if you get the same amount of money,
parents should decide.
Parents should decide where their kid
parent wants to
go
to a charter school, should you let them go?
But I believe that
Barack Obama sent his kid to the lab school, private school.
That was his choice.
He opted out of the public school.
That was his choice.
But shouldn't a low-income person who doesn't have as much money as Michelle and Barack Obama be able to also have choice?
No, we should bring our public schools up to par. That every public school will offer the same services in every public school. The reason why they want to go to the charter schools is because the public schools don't offer the education that they want, so they want an alternative. So right now we do that, but if we made our public schools the same, like if all of our public schools was like Northside Prep or like Whitney Young or like LaSalle or Language Academy or all the what is the other great public schools?
Those are good schools.
Elementary schools.
Then you'd be fine if they could all do that.
If every school like that, and the kid can walk in the neighborhood in their community and go to school.
So you're saying those schools are getting more per dollar?
I don't know if they're getting more per money, per dollar. They're not getting more per kid, but how they do them, how they raise their money. A lot of the kids that go to different schools, the parents raise money for their schools. Private help. Foundations and so forth. We got to go on to the foreign policy. Okay.
Iraq. If you'd been Barack Obama, you know his feelings. I'd go back to that because he came out of the state senate. You probably knew him.
Yes.
Do you know him when you were there?
Yes, I know him.
He said in 2002 it was a dumb war. It was stupid to go into Iraq. He made that view quite clear. If you had been in Congress in 2002 in the fall, would you have voted against giving the president authority to take military action in Iraq?
I would not have voted to go to war. You would
have agreed with Barack Obama then?
I would have agreed not to vote for the war.
What about Afghanistan? We've now, since Barack Obama's been there, I think we've had 20 or 30,000 more troops in Afghanistan. I think there are now 61,000 troops. Some people are saying there should be even more. Barack Obama is now the commander-in-chief. He's supporting that. Do you back up your commander-in-chief on that?
Yes. Well, they're there now.
In Afghanistan?
They're there.
But should there be more troops? You support more troops in Afghanistan?
Well, I'm supporting our troops to come home.
No, but Barack wants to bring more troops, I think, into Afghanistan. Would you support that if he does want to do that?
Well, he said that they want to bring the troops home in a couple of years.
Iraq, but in Afghanistan, we don't know.
Afghanistan, well, I think we want to bring all of them home.
Okay.
That's where I stand, bringing all our troops home.
The economy, bailouts. You know, the $700 billion bailout in the fall of 2008, bail out the financial sector. Mm-hmm. Would you have supported that if you were in Congress?
Well, I probably would have supported it, but I would have had my own ideas as well. Like, I think how we could have spent the money was to give each family money and then have their families go out and pay their mortgages. They would have caught up on their mortgages, bought new automobiles, and send their kids to college, and then we would have stimulated the economy because everyone would have been spending money.
Everybody across the country.
Across the country.
We get, what, $2,500 per person?
No, we got about $600. I was thinking something like $10,000.
$10,000 per person?
$10,000 per person in the family. You know, that would have given them an opportunity, especially if they made an assessment of those who had mortgages and they were back on their mortgages.
Nothing for the banks, just the individuals?
Well, the banks would have gotten the money because actually people would have been paying their mortgages and people would have been paying their car loans. And
they would have gotten them from the people, but
right,
nothing directly from the government.
Right. That was what would have been my idea on the table.
$800 billion stimulus that Barack Obama brought us in earlier this year. You would have voted for that?
Yeah, I would have voted for that, plus even a little more.
Even more. But
Right.
now you know the Congressional Budget Office, nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, projects $1 trillion a year deficit for the next decade, $900 trillion in deficits added to the debt for the next decade following this administration's plan, the Obama plan. You support those, $900 trillion in deficits?
Well, the country we're in trouble right now. Everything, all our banks and institutions are in trouble, and the government, I think that is the government responsibility when everything is down, that is our responsibility to help the people come out of this economic crisis.
So is that a yes? You'd support those $900 trillion in deficits for the next decade?
Well, we already have it.
Well,
So
we could cut spending somewhere along the way.
Well, what can
if
you
we keep
cut?
spending on the
But
current
what can
path.
you cut? What can you cut? Because right now, just look, even on the state level, we cut, and people can't buy food. All the food pantries
So you
are
don't see
closed.
any place to cut?
No, I don't see any places to cut.
Personally, some people say politicians, when they run for office, ought to release their tax returns. You plan to release your tax returns?
Well, I don't know if that's required.
It's not required by law. People say they should do it. Presidential candidates, I think, usually do it.
Well, I'm
what
not a
about you?
presidential candidate.
You're a congressional candidate. Would you voluntarily release your tax returns?
We'll see.
You haven't decided that?
No.
Would you tell people what your
There's
net worth
nothing
was?
there. Yeah, I don't make anything but about what, $70,000.
What about your family
or
net
something
worth?
like that.
You're
my
married, right?
husband, mhm.
What's your family net worth? Would
Yeah,
you
we don't
disclose
make.
that?
It's probably embarrassing. People don't want to know.
You'd be embarrassed.
Yeah.
But if they did want to know, would you say what it was? 100,000, 200,000?
Yeah, I can tell
Well,
them
what
that.
is it? What's your net worth?
So what I make about 75,000. He makes about the same.
What have you saved though? Your net worth, your assets?
No,
do you
we
got
don't
many?
save. We just had a kid in college and just
Okay.
went through this. We're experiencing this economic crisis, so I really sympathize with the people about all of the different things that they're going through, which is why I know that, if the government spent money, give money directly to families, that families could have gotten out of the crisis, and the banks and everybody else would have gotten their money back, because people would have paid their credit cards, people would have paid their car notes and loans and whatever else they needed. They would have been able to do that.
What about the cultural issues? Gays, guns, God, abortion, that stuff? Abortion, you pro-choice?
I'm pro-choice.
100% pro-choice?
100% pro-choice.
Okay. And there are no restrictions you put on a woman's right to choose?
No.
Partial birth abortion, you agree with that?
No. Well, I think
there's a congressional ban that was federally on banning partial birth abortion. It passed the Congress, upheld by the Supreme Court. If you went to Congress, would you vote against that partial ban? That ban on partial birth abortion?
Well, I do think that people should have an abortion before a certain point.
Which point? 5 months? 4 months? 6 months? What's your point?
Unless they just did not know.
Well, what's your point? 4 months? 5 months? 6 months?
It's usually about 3 months.
After 3 months,
after
they
the
shouldn't have
third
an
month.
abortion, you don't think?
Well, they could. You never know the circumstances beyond that. But for just having one, I think initially it should be the first 3 months, the first trimester. After that, you have to look at each case individually.
We're going to continue to speak as the credits roll, but I very much want to thank our guest, State Representative Annazette Collins. She is running for Congress in the 7th Congressional District Democratic primary. She's got competition. State Rep LaShawn Ford has been here before. He's running. Alderman Sharon Dixon is running. Chief Deputy Recorder of Deeds. I think that doesn't sound right, but it's something like that. The number 2 person in the Recorder of Deeds office, Darlena Williams-Burnett, will be here next week. Ricky Hendon, possibly State Senator, possibly Alderman Bob Fioretti. Jim Ascott, Reverend Hatch. So you got some competition.
Yes.
If people favor you and they want to find out about you, we didn't have a website to put up, where should they get in touch with you?
collinsforcongress@yahoo.com.
collinsforcongress@yahoo.com, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you will have a website?
Yes. It will be